Let me start by saying something that is going to shock a lot of people. Aunt Jemima did not kill George Floyd. Has Aunt Jemima been the cause of death in a lot of people who really like pancakes? Sure, yes, she has. But George Floyd was murdered, not by a syrup bottle or a pancake mix or anyone's aunt. He was murdered by the guy who was charged with murder. Aunt Jemima was not charged with murder. Tough facts, huh? So I know it's tough to know by the tone of the Aunt Jemima's parent company. Yeah, Aunt Jemima's not guilty here. The VP of Quaker Foods said in a statement, "We recognize Aunt Jemima's origins are based on a racial stereotype. While work has been done over the years to update the brand in a manner intended to be appropriate and respectful, we realize those changes are not enough." She went on, "We are starting by removing the image and changing the name. We will continue the conversation by gathering diverse perspectives from both our organization and the Black community to further evolve the brand and make it one that everyone can be proud to have in their pantry." Look, there's no doubt that judging by today's standards, there were significant racial stereotypes used in the branding of Aunt Jemima historically. The company was started by white people in 1889 and eventually failed and then was sold. The new owners wanted a real person to play Aunt Jemima. All right. Whose name, of course, came from minstrel shows. Again, it's 1889. Everybody is a racist. 100% of people are racist. It's 1889. They discovered Nancy Green and they gave her the gig. She was born a slave in 1834 and went on to play Aunt Jemima until her death. Some say she died a millionaire, although it's a bit questionable. But what isn't questionable is that the arc of her life was a positive one. It's easy to compare to today, but think of where she came from. She started life as a literal slave. She died free, relatively wealthy, as a missionary and a woman who organized one of the biggest churches in Chicago. No wonder she is so offensive to the left. Do you think Nancy Green died wanting people to look back at her life as some sort of racially offensive thing to be ashamed of? I think she died proud of how far she came. Or how about Anna Harrington? She was the second Aunt Jemima. She played the part for 14 years, and because of that job, she bought a 22-room house that was so big she used some of it as a hotel. I bet she would want us to look back at her life and be impressed, not just think about how she was oppressed. What we need to be remembering here is thinking people is that these things change meaning over time. Volkswagen meant people's car, and they had the worst spokesperson of all time. His name was Adolf. We now know it as a kind of hippie car for suburban ski moms. Hugo Boss literally designed the Nazi uniforms. What does that mean for their suits of today? Are you a Nazi if you own one? No. There is a book called IBM and the Holocaust. I was not a business major, but I do know this. You do not want your company name to come before the phrase, "and the Holocaust." Bad. What does that mean for them today? Do you hate Jews if you own one of their laptops? No. We all understand that the people around today that work at IBM don't hate Jews, and we're able to learn from their history without holding people responsible who weren't even alive at the time. Look, if you're going to pull Aunt Jemima, you might as well pull everything off the market that's more than a few years old. Everyone and everything from the past is offensive to us today, if you go back far enough. And again, I'll go out on a limb and generalize, everyone was racist in 1889. All people were racist, scientific fact. But if you polled African Americans in both of those eras, how many black women would switch places with Nancy Green and Anna Harrington? Like probably almost all of them. Yes, a lot of the imagery was entirely unacceptable, but that's why you change it over time, which they did. And today's Aunt Jemima was holding on to the name, but also has nothing to do with the racist stereotypes anymore. None of this is the worst part of the story, though. The worst part is the subtle progressive racism involved in all of this. This idea that white people understand this stuff better than minorities, and then can therefore inform non-whites about how they should be offended. This happens with Native Americans all the time. White people tell them they should be offended by the name Redskins, and they say, shut up. We'll let you know if we're offended or not. How about that? 90% of Native Americans are not offended by the name Redskins. What is vastly underreported is that the same exact thing is happening with Aunt Jemima. Aunt Jemima is the largest syrup brand in the United States, with about 3 times the amount of customers as Mrs. Butterworth and Log Cabin, and about 4 times as much as Hungry Jack. Also, I now really want pancakes. But who is buying Aunt Jemima syrup? You'd think if this was truly a racist product that African Americans would avoid buying it, right? Well, I don't know. Let's see. Corporate research firm, Numerator, took the snapshot of the people who buy Aunt Jemima, and their findings might surprise you. The way this works essentially is a 0 to 200 scale, with 100 being average. So let's look quickly to get the idea at income level. There's not much difference here, basically. The scores all range from 95 to 107, right around that 100 average. The lowest and highest income groups like Aunt Jemima a little more, and those in the middle a little less, but not much variance between the groups. That is not the story when it comes to race. With all these evil racist white people out there, you'd think white people would be off the charts. But no, remember 100 is average. Whites come in a little below that with a score of 88. How about African Americans? Now remember, this product is so racist, I'd assume no African Americans will buy it. What is their score? 197. Remember, literally a perfect score would be 200, and it's at 197. The people who really love Aunt Jemima are African Americans. They are the ones buying it in enormous numbers. The media and the left are once again trying to tell black people when they should be offended and what they should be offended by. It's a subtle way of talking down to people. Oh, honey, you don't understand. This is bad for you and you shouldn't like it. I mean, 197 out of 200. Is there anything in your entire life you'd rate a 197 out of 200? Prince Andrew wouldn't even give a 197 out of 200 to 16-year-old girls. And this is the point. We are telling black people that Aunt Jemima is offensive. And they are telling us, shut up. We wouldn't be buying it if we were offended by it. Let us eat our frigging pancakes in peace. And the brilliant solution to everyone's white guilt is to take one of African Americans' favorite products off the market. Gee, thanks, white people. Look again at this statement from the company. We are starting by removing the image and changing the name. We will continue the conversation by gathering diverse perspectives from both our organization and the black community to further evolve the brand and make it one everyone can be proud to have in their pantry. They are proud to have it in their pantry, proud enough to bust their ass at work to earn money and then spend it on your freaking syrup. And then you're telling them they're not smart enough to figure out for themselves what to buy? No syrup bottle is capable of being more racist than that. By the way, you know who really hates Aunt Jemima? Asians. They only had a score of 49 out of 200. Why, you ask? I have no idea. I just thought it was interesting. And by the way, our own Sarah Gonzalez, who tweeted this, the only offensive thing about Aunt Jemima is that so many people still buy that nasty-ass corn syrup garbage instead of actual maple syrup. Don't at me. Well, she's way out of step with her fellow Hispanics who also freaking love Aunt Jemima. A score of 175 out of 200. Look, sometimes these controversies are completely ridiculous. But Aunt Jemima does have some stuff from back in the day that looks straight out racist and even pretty racially insensitive by old-timey standards. But things change. You'd think the crowd that embraces the argument that the Constitution is a living document would understand that brands can evolve. Regardless of how people believe and how people have used them in the past, what year is it? It's 2020. Redskins just means football team now, period. Aunt Jemima just means breakfast. Coca-Cola just means soda, not fizzy cocaine drink. This bizarre habit society has developed of self-therapy through cancellation of others accomplishes precisely nothing. Aunt Jemima did not kill George Floyd, and no amount of removing breakfast foods from the market can bring him back to life. I will say, after all of that, the one thing we can all agree on is I really like pancakes and want some right now. Now, this had nothing to do with me just wanting a bunch of pancakes. Thank you very much. This was research and history, because I went to the store and I went to the syrup aisle and I wanted to get some Aunt Jemima syrup. You know what? Want to hear something sad? They've already pulled it off the shelves. It's already all gone. So what did I do? I mean, I certainly wasn't going to kill the whole thing about eating pancakes. So I got the next one on the list. Got some Mrs. Buttersworth. You know, because you know she's toast. Oh, there's a cup, one of these dumb tops at the top here. She's toast. I mean, Mrs. Butterworth she has no chance of survival. You know, all these brands are going down the tubes, okay? We're going to have nothing left on the shelves. We're going to be Venezuela in about 2 weeks. I mean, so a little Mrs. Buttersworth. And you might say, Stu, you know, I'm disappointed in you. You went to a store, you could not find, oh, this is going to be fun. Oh, there's a little, where the knife was, there's a little hole for syrup in the middle. You might be disappointed in me. You might say I didn't go far enough. How come you didn't get some Aunt Jemima? I mean, Mrs. Butterworth, sure, she's toast. She's basically going to be going to prison soon anyway. But you might say they just took them off the shelves. And I say, yeah, but see, I outsmarted them. I also went to the pancake mix section, and I found one of the last 2 boxes of Aunt Jemima anywhere in the country. So now I own it. I'm going to sell it for thousands of dollars on eBay. And then I'm going to give it to Mrs. Butterworth because she's going to need it for her legal defense fund. I will tell you this, 12 pancakes is not going to get enough stress out of your life, honestly. It's a little rubbery, to be frank with you. I think they've been cooling over there for a while.